Hello, it's Rabbi Elton here at the Great Synagogue, and this is another of our weekly online classes. If you want to send comments or questions in the comments, then please do so. This slot, 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, is going to be for Rashi. Every Shabbos morning, in normal times, I teach a few Rashis from the weekly parsha, and over the course of the past years, we've been doing a different aliyah each year. So this year, we're looking at the third aliyah of each parsha. I didn't manage to teach, of course, last Shabbos morning. We already closed down. So I'm going to do last week's Vayakhel, the third aliyah of Vayakhel, and then I'll do the third aliyah of Vayikra, which we would have been laning this coming Shabbos. So Vayakhel, we're talking about the construction of the tabernacle and the work and the donations that came towards that work. So we're going to look at chapter 35, verse 26, and it says here, V'chol ha-nashim asher nasa liban osana v'chochma, all the women who are whose hearts are skilled in weaving, tavu esa izim, they're going to weave the goats. Now, oddly enough, it doesn't say the goat fibers or the goat wool. It just says they're going to weave the goats. So Rashi picks up on that, and he says, Hi haisa amanus yasera. This was in fact an extremely skilled operation. Shemeal gabe ha-izim tovim osam, because when they were doing the weaving, the wool was still on the goats. So I've had trouble getting my daughter's hair into a ponytail, let alone trying to weave wool while it's on the side of the goat, but that's what these women were able to do. The next verse. Vanesiim heviu es avnei shoham, the princes, the heads of each of the tribes, they brought precious stones, so probably or possibly lapis lazuli, vies avnei ha-miluim, and the stones for setting, le'ephod, v'lachoshen, two of the priestly or high priestly garments which contain stones. Now it mentions the bringing of these gifts very early on at this stage. So Rashi notes something, or quotes the Sifri, which is an early rabbinic work, a classic rabbinic work, which notices a difference in the behaviour of the Nesiim, of the princes, than their behaviour earlier. So Amar Rabbi Nassan said, Mara'u Nesiim lisnadev v'chanukas hamizbeach b'tchila. Why was it that when it comes to inaugurating the altar, the mizbeach, the princes brought first? They brought their gifts first of all. They're right, straight off the starting blocks. Uvimleches hamishkan lo hisnavdvu b'tchila. But when it came to assembling the materials for the construction of the tabernacle sometime earlier, they didn't bring first. Elakach amru ha-nesiim. This is what the princes said initially. Yisnavdu tzibor, mashinisnavdu nadvin. Let the tzibor, let the congregation, the whole people, bring whatever they want to bring. Uma shemachasrin anu mashlimim also. And anything which is not brought, which is still needed, we will bring. Which is actually a very good suggestion to make. If you're the JCA and you want to raise $2 million or $5 million, and you speak to a few guys and they say, raise what you can from the community, and whatever they don't raise will make up the difference. That's a great for an organisation to know there's that sort of fallback position. And that's what the princes did. Whatever is brought, and we guarantee that we will make up the difference. Very nice. However, Kevan, sheshlimu tzibur es hakol, but when it turns out that the tzibur, that the mass of the people, brought everything that was needed, shlema hamlacha haisa dayam, we're going to learn later that everything that was needed for the work was in fact brought, and maybe even more. Amru nesiim ma aleinu lasos, the princess says, what are we supposed to do now? We've lost our chance to bring a contribution to the tabernacle because it's all already been brought. And that's why lechas hisnavdu b'chanukas hamizbeach tchila. And that's why at this point they say, no, we're not making that mistake again. We're going to bring first of all. We're not going to miss out this time. Lefishis atzlu mitzchila nechsura os mishmam hanesiim ksiv. And that's why the word nesiim in this verse is written not as it would normally be written, with a yud, but without its yud. It's written chaser, it's written lacking a letter, to show that they missed out. They made a mistake and they missed out, and that is indicated by the lack of yud in their in the word. So here we have a very interesting example of rabbinic close reading, very close reading. Two factors have come together to produce this comment in the Sifri. One is that the rabbis, the classical rabbis, the rabbis of the Talmudic period, have noticed there's a difference between the place where the princes bring first time, bring second time. The first time they're nowhere to be seen at the kick-off. Second time they're very quick off the mark. They notice that, and they also notice, or at least tie it to, this strange spelling without the yud, and they want to either read into that something significant, or at least it's a way of remembering or indicating that something significant has gone on. Now, who's going to do this work? Verse 30. Vayemer Moshe el bnei Israel. Moses said to the children of Israel, Ru'u kara Hashem b'shem. See that God has called by name, has called individually and specifically, Betzalel ben Uri ben Chor lemate Yehuda. He's called Betzalel, the son of Uri, the son of Chor, of the tribe of Yehuda. So who is this person Betzalel in terms of the family connections? Chor is Bana shel Miriam Haya. So Chor was the son of Miriam, and so Uri is the grandson of Miriam, and Betzalel is the great-grandson of Miriam. So this is a descendant of Miriam, and a husband who was Nachshon ben Aminadav, who was a prince of the tribe of Yehuda. So this is a family of Moshe and Aaron. He's one of their great nephews. And why is this particularly significant? What's special about Betzalel? What's made special about Betzalel, let's say better? God placed in his heart the ability to teach, presumably to teach all the skills that were necessary in order to make the tabernacle. And also there's somebody else involved here. Va'liav ben Achisamach lemate Dan. There's also Aheliav, who's the son of Achisamach, who's from the tribe of Dan. Now, I just mentioned that if we believe that Betzalel is descended from Miriam and her husband Nachshon, then he's from the tribe of Judah, which of course is a very high status tribe, the tribe from which the kings of Israel are going to come. What about Ahaliav? Mishevet Dan min ha-Yerudin shebashvatim. So Rashi says he was from the tribe of Dan, which was one of the least significant or least high status of all of the tribes. Why? Mibnei hashvachos. They come from one of the maidservants. So as we know, Yaakov had 4 partners, 2 wives and 2 concubines, and Dan comes from a concubine, not from a full wife. So that already makes his status a little lower. But but God makes Eliyahu as significant and as important as Betzalel when it comes to the work of the Mishkan. V'hu migdali hashvatim, and Betzalel, being from the tribe of Judah, and from on his mother's side, from Miriam's side, from the leadership, the family of the leadership, he's from a very important background. He's got great yichus, unlike Aliyot, and yet they're placed on a par when it comes to the work of the Mishkan. Lekayem mashnema, and this fulfills the verse, says Rashi, Lo nikar shoal ifnei dal. God does not put the rich ahead of the poor, or put it more broadly, he doesn't put the high status ahead of the low status. What you can contribute and what your personal qualities are matter more to God than your yichus. Something worth bearing in mind when finding a shidduch for your children. We're now off into chapter 36, and let's look at verse 5. Vayamru el Moshe lemor. So a call has gone out for all these materials, and they speak to Moses and they say, Marabim ha'am lavi midei ha'avoda lamlacha asher siva Hashem lasoso sa. They say the people have brought more for the work, and then we have this strange phrase midei ha'avoda lamlacha, more for the work of the work. Rashi's going to look into that phrase that God has commanded them to do. So the people are given more than is necessary. So Rashi just comes to explain what this strange phrase means, bidei havoda, yoser mikdei tzorach havoda, that they've brought more than is necessary for the work of constructing the tabernacle. There's an excess of materials, and we don't want waste. So the next verse tells us, Vayitzav Moshe Vayiviru kol b'machaneh, and Moses commanded, and a announcement was made throughout the camp, Lamor saying, Ish Isha, Al Yasu Od Malacha Lisrumas HaKodesh, Vayikhel Ha'am Me Havi. Each man and woman shouldn't do any more work or any more contributions to the work of the Kodesh, of the sanctuary, and the people stopped Me Havi. Now the word Vayikhel Ha'am, the people stopped. That's the same word as is used for God at the end of creation. Vayachilu Hashem haaretz v'osel ha'am. The work of making the heavens and the earth was stopped or completed. And Rashi says, Vayikhel, and the people stopped, and he says, Lashon Meniah. It's a language of holding back. So it's not just that they stopped, they actually had to force themselves, restrain themselves from giving more. They wanted to give more, they wanted to be more involved, and to make greater donations, and they actually had to physically, or at least mentally, emotionally restrain themselves in order not to give more, because they've been told to by Moses. That, by the way, has interesting ramifications if we look back at creation, that at some point God says, maybe I want to create more, I want to do more, in some sense, but I'm holding back. And that feeds into Kabbalistic ideas that there needs to be some sort of a limit to God's chesed, God's kindness, which is the root of creation. God creates out of kindness, otherwise everything will sort of explode with an overabundance of God's chesed or godliness in the world. There needs to be some sort of restraint, just as there was restraint in the desert. People stopped giving when they were told to stop giving. And the last verse we can look at from Vayakhel, V'hamlacha haisa dayam l'chol hamlacha la'asos osa v'hoser, and the work was sufficient or excessive, all the work that was to be done and more. So Rashi says, Umleches hava haisa dayam shel oseh hamishkan, the work of bringing. We're not talking about the work of manufacturing, but the work, the labour, the activity of bringing was sufficient for everything that needed to be made for the Mishkan. L'chol hamlacha shel Mishkan, all of the work of the Mishkan, nasos osa ulahoser. Everything that was necessary for it to be completed had been given already, and indeed there was some already left over. So we'll leave Vayakhel there, and let's look at this week's parsha. Let's have a look at Vayikra and the third aliyah, the third portion call-up of Vayikra, and we're looking at sacrifices, in particular meal sacrifices. So mincha is the word we use for the afternoon service. Mincha is in fact originally the word used for a meal offering, an offering made of flour and oil. And we're looking at some of the regulations concerning those meal offerings. So we're in Vayikra, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 2, verse 7. Ve'im minchas marcheshes korbanecha, and if your offering is a mincha offering, a meal offering, an offering of flour, marcheshes, that's the word we're going to be interested in, soles b'shemen teaseh, it should be made of special flour, the best quality flour, in oil. Now Rashi is interested in what this word marcheshes mean, and he says this: Kli hu shahaya b'mikdash. This was one of the vessels which was in the tabernacle and later on in the temple. Amok, it was deep. Umitoch shehi amukam, because it was deep. Shamna tavor vein haor sorfo. The oil would be sort of piled up, if a liquid could be piled up, but it would certainly be concentrated together and quite deep, and so that the fire wouldn't catch it. If you try and throw a match into a whole bucket of oil, it's not going to catch fire. Lefichach masei mincha hasuyin lesocha rochashin, and that's why when there was meal added to it, when there was flour added to it. It was called rochashin. It was called creeping. That's the word marcheshes. Rochashin, same word. Kol dvar rach aide mashker nira ke rochesh menanea umnanea. Everything that is soft, because of the liquid which is contained in it, appears as though it's creeping and moving. And so this was a vessel, a pan, when anything was in it looked like it was moving around, and that's why it was called the maracheshes. It was the pot for things that look like they're moving. Next verse 8. And when you bring to God this meal offering, which is made of any of these different types, which has just been described in the previous verses, Vikriva el Kohen, and it should be brought to the Kohen, it should be brought into the Kohen, the priest, Vihigisha el hamizbeach, and then it should be taken, or he shall take it to the altar. So Rashi just wants to clarify who's doing what here. We have these different figures, the person who's bringing the offering, and the priest who then perhaps takes it further, but Rashi just wants to be clear who does what in this arrangement. Vikriva, who's the person bringing it to the Kohen? Ba'aleha, the owner. The owner of the flour, he's the one who brings it to the priest. Vehigisha, and who does the bringing to the mizbech, to the altar? HaKohen. So we have the owner, the offerer of the sacrifice, the meal sacrifice, bringing it to the priest, and the priest then brings it on further to the altar. Vehigisha el mizbech, and Rashi says, Magisha la keren dromis maravis shel mizbeach. He brings it to the southwest corner of the altar. So the altar was had four corners, and different sacrifices have their parts either sprinkled or placed or poured on different parts of the altar. And it turns out that this mincha, this meal offering, it went to the southwest corner of the altar. Verse number 9. Veherim hakohen min hamincha es askarasa. So the Kohen, the priest, removes herim, same word as truma, an offering to God in some sense. He takes this particular part of the mincha, or a portion of the mincha, away. Viktir hamizbecha isherech nichach lashem, and he turns it into smoke. He smokes it on the altar, a sweet savour to God. This phrase, Rech Nichach Lashem, isn't discussed by Rashi here. It's a very interesting phrase, kind of a difficult phrase theologically. How do we have the sweet savour to God? God doesn't have nostrils, and God doesn't appreciate the smell of baking challah like we might. So many of the commentators explain that this simply means that the fact we're doing God's will is a matter which is pleasing to God. That's the Rech Nichach, that's the pleasing odour, that's the sweet savour. God perceives that we're doing what he wants to do. Now, what's this azkarasa? What's this portion of the mincha? He hakomates. This is a fistful. He takes a fistful of the flour, of the mixture, and that's what he turns into smoke. Verse 11. Kol mincha asher takruv l'Hashem lo se'aseh chometz ki kol se'or v'chol davash lo saktiru mimenu ishel Hashem. Now, none of these minchas, none of these meal offerings that you offer up to God shall be made from chometz. Very appropriate for us as we approach Pesach. There is none of the meal offerings were chometz. Were all Pesach, as it were, because no se'or, no leaven, no sourdough really. V'chol davash, and no, well, we know davash is usually translated as honey. We'll see what it actually means in a biblical context. So no leaven and no davash, no honey. Lo taktiru mimenu ishel Hashem. That's not turned into smoke before God. It doesn't exclude all uses of leaven and honey, but certainly this act whereby you take a portion of a meal offering and you smoke it, that is restricted entirely to matzah, or the equivalent, not chametz, and no honey. So let's have a look at what Rashi says about this. V'chol dvash, you can't have anything which is honey. Now, what is dvash? Kol mesikas pri kruya dvash. Anything that's sweet, any of the sweet juices which ooze from a fruit, that's called honey. So in fact, when we talk about a land flowing with milk and honey, actually the honey we're talking about is date honey, the sweet liquid that oozes from dates. And now let's get a bit more clarification from verse 12. Korban reishis takrivu osol Hashem. Now you can bring first items, let's say first fruits, to God, El HaMizbeach, and they come to the altar. Lo ya'alu l'reich nichach. They're just not smoked. They're not cooked or burned in such a way as to provide a sweet savour, a pleasant odour to God or anyone else. So what are these first items? So that is, says Rashi, Ma yesh lecha lavi min asor min advash. What are these things which actually you are allowed to bring, which are leaven and which have sweet juices in them? Korban reishis, this is the first offering, the first fruit offering. Shtei halechem, shat seres, habai min asor. On Shavuot, which amongst other things is the festival of the wheat harvest, we bring 2 leaven loaves. The shtei halechem, and they are chametz. So the first fruits offering of wheat is in fact a chametz offering. Shneimar, as the verse says explicitly, chametz te'afena. They should be 2 leaven loaves baked. That says in Vayikra. And well, what about this fruit juice, as it were? These fruits which have within them sweet juice, the dvash. Uvikurim min hadvash. Bikurim are the first fruits of everything else, of dates, of figs, of grapes, so on and so forth. Kamo bikure ta'enim utmarim. The first fruits of figs and dates, they are brought to the altar. They're not smoked, but they are brought to the altar. And of course, they contain the sweet dvash, the sweet juices, which would be not be permitted to be turned into smoke, but are permitted in other circumstances. The first fruits. So the first fruits is the only occasion, it seems, where we bring items which have juice and items which have which are leaven in the form of the shtei lechem, the 2 loaves which are the first fruit offering of wheat. Thank you very much for joining. And next Tuesday at 10, we will look at the some Rashis from the 3rd aliyah of next week's parsha. Everyone have a good, safe, and healthy week. God bless.